Dr. Pepper, 4 teams, LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, vying for that. And you know what? We spent like the better part of 3 hours talking about how great these teams are, so many flowery conversations. Let's get into weaknesses here, Acho. How about weaknesses? And why don't we begin with a team that may have none, right? I mean, LSU.
Yeah, for me, LSU, it's defensively. And I think they have a bunch of great individual parts. Derek Stingley at cornerback, phenomenal. Now that Grant Delpit has gotten healthier, he looks really good. Collectively, as a cohesive unit in their secondary, we've seen them be vulnerable at times, both in coming up and stopping the run as sure tacklers, and then in the passing game. I think we've seen them be susceptible. Now, we haven't seen it in the last 2 weeks, so you kind of have to reach into your memory bank and remember where they are deficient. Jake Fromm wasn't going to test them, especially with the receivers dropping passes, but that to me is their deficiency.
Go ahead. Where are you going?
How about the team they're playing? How about the Oklahoma Sooners?
Well, it's obviously defense. Now, they showed us last night that if they put their minds to it, they can play good defense. But my issue is this, defense is an every week proposition, okay? You got to bring it. You got to have an internal fire, an internal passion, a motivation, a willingness to put your chest on somebody, to avoid arm tackles, to not turn your cheek at the last minute, okay? It's an attitude, it's a mindset, and it's not an on-off switch. And I've seen it on early. I saw it off for a while, and then I saw it on the other night, and that really bothers me about Oklahoma. I have great respect for their coaches. I think Alex does a great job. Obviously, Lincoln does a great job. But that's my big issue.
You know, through 12 games, I'm not sure that there were too many weaknesses with Ohio State. And then in the first 30 minutes of last night's game, some were exposed. Where are you going with Ohio State, Greg?
I would say the fact that they haven't been in a really close game in the fourth quarter. That's the one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about. Justin Fields has had everything look kind of flowery and nice for him throughout the course of the season. But when the game's on the line, can he deliver? I think last night's performance helped them grow in that regard. But frankly, they're just so much more superior to Wisconsin. The game should have never been in that position to begin with. So I think the other 3 teams are very battle-tested, very calloused, and I'm not sure we've seen Ohio State play and respond to adversity just yet.
And then we'll give everyone a bite at the apple here on Clemson. What about weaknesses for Dabo Swinney's team?
I would say the offensive line. I think that group has been susceptible all year, and if they can pressure, particularly with Chase Young, if they can pressure Trevor Lawrence and force him into uncomfortable situations, that's how you get home. That's how North Carolina made him uncomfortable and kind of held that offense in check.
I don't think that they have a notable weakness other than, like you said, a little bit on the offensive line, but they make up for it by running the ball. Travis Etienne is averaging 8.2 yards a carry, and then their defense. Their defense is special. I mean, it is really, really special.
Yeah, I would be making something up if I were to try to say that Clemson had a weakness right now. We haven't seen a team be good enough or challenge Clemson enough in the recent time to really say that Clemson has a weakness.
All right, let's lay it all on the line here right now. And Ach, you're up first here. It's time for predictions here. Let's begin with the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State and Clemson. Who do you like in that matchup?
Baby.
Right now, on whatever day it is, sometime in early December, because you get lost watching all the games, I'm going to say Clemson for right now.
Ohio State.
I'm going Clemson as well.
Okay, all right, you
the
two.
matchup and Venables is the difference. I think him on the defensive side is the big difference.
You guys, you do all realize that Dabo Swinney's saying, no, we need more ammunition. Give me more ammunition here. All right, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Greg, LSU and Oklahoma.
LSU.
Okay.
LSU.
Yeah, LSU, too much offense. Oklahoma, they're going to put up a fight early, but LSU's just too much.
Unanimity here on this set. That doesn't always happen. All right, and then that gets us to the national championship game, and we invited you to get involved in the discussion online. And then, of course, the Caesars Sportsbook odds to win the college football playoff. Look at that, 3-2 odds for LSU, 2-1 for Clemson, 5-2 for Ohio State. And then if you're daring and you want to lay a shekel or two down on Oklahoma, that might be a nice little payback for you there at 12-1 odds. So we've kind of waded our way through the national semifinal conversation. Ach, national champion, who's it going to be?
Right now, early on, you have to say LSU. And to pick against them, you'd have to tell me convincingly as to why. Joe Burrow, not only does he have the talent, right now they have the it factor. And like Coach said, they're not really afraid to play anybody. I think it's LSU's time. I think it's LSU's year. I think they'll have a much easier semifinal game against Oklahoma, whereas Ohio State, Clemson, they're really going to bloody each other up. I think LSU.
I'm going to pick LSU as well, and I started the day by saying that Ohio State was my team to be ranked number one. But I think LSU is going to win it all. I think they're going to beat Oklahoma, and I think that, you talked about all the distractions of being in New Orleans, and those are real. But Ed Orgeron has done an amazing job. We talk about Joe Burrows, and he deserves all the talk. But Ed Orgeron has done an amazing job of creating an environment, a culture, a belief, a confidence, a sense of ease with everything that they're doing. I mean, you just watch him. And I really believe that they truly believe, it's not words, that we'll take anybody on anywhere, and we'll play you at night, day, in the rain, in the sleet, in the snow, in the sun, on gravel, on dirt, on AstroTurf, under a roof, or outside, and we'll beat your tail.
I love it because Coach has been so on the fence on that one. He's having I think the morning show was Ohio State, night show. I think 3 shows, 3 different champions.
Man, it's hard.
I'm going to sell you on Oklahoma over dinner. I look at it, and I think it's going to be LSU. I think the home field advantage in the Superdome could be a factor as well. I love their matchup in the semifinal, so I know that they're going to get there with relative. I don't want to say relative ease because I have respect for Oklahoma, but I think LSU has a much better position to get to the championship where they would find that home field advantage. And I think their defense is better than people realize. Yeah. The problem is everyone's been so enamored with their offense, but championships are won on the defense side of the football. And that defense these last 2 weeks, after being questioned by Rob Mullins on the committee about whether or not they're any good, they've responded. And dominated Georgia yesterday, dominated A&M the week before that. And if you look at the talent now that they're starting to get healthy, that's the side of the football that's going to win them the championship.
Yeah, I love it when an offensive guy talks defense, baby, and admits
I love it.
Defense wins games.
It does, absolutely.
I'll only propose this, G-Mac, is the only way LSU falters is if they try to get too smart for themselves. Joe Brady's just getting here, the offense, Coach O's just here. If they start to get a little tight, that's the only way. Outside of that, LSU rolls.
Man, how much fun was this?
It's awesome.
3 hours of talking football, and the best part is
3 more weeks too. We got a lot of time.
We'll get to Championship Drive. Who's in continues 8:30 on ESPN. For the guys, I'm Kev. Thanks so much for watching.
Chaos isn't over. It's just begun, because only one of these 4 proud programs will be champion when everything is said and done.
I'm a champion!
Touchdown! An hour into our 2 hours of getting you ready for the 9 bowl games featuring SEC teams. Greg McElroy going to join us from Bristol, I believe is where he is here in just a little bit. Also get you through some of the other games, like, for instance, Auburn.
Haven't even talked about them yet, right?
Haven't talked about them, but we're going to. They're off to the Outback Bowl.
A big game, a blooming onion or coconut shrimp. You know which
blooming
one
onion
those
anytime.
2 are going to be. Also, one of the things I'm looking forward to talking about is the Florida Gators as well.
Yeah.
Talking about them because so much was made about, are they indeed the second best team in the SEC? You seem to be a little bit hesitant.
Me?
Yes,
On
no?
Florida being no, actually. Look,
well, let's take a look at the season.
Here's what I can tell you. The AP poll put them at 6,
right,
which is way higher than the CFP put them. I'm more in line with the AP poll, frankly.
All right, so there it is.
I like
believe
Florida,
it. So let's go ahead. Just in case you weren't watching, let's go ahead and give you the season in review. Started off pretty good, right? 6-0, won those first 6 games, but Felipe Franks out for the season, which obviously ended up leading to Kyle Trask taking over for the Gators, and they ended up going on the next level. But then, of course, you know how it is in the SEC, right? Tough stretch of games. They had 5th-ranked LSU, of course, end up being in the college football playoff, and Georgia Bulldogs in Jacksonville. They lost 2 of their next 3 games into top 10 teams, and ultimately that cost them an opportunity to go to the ATL. But here it is, chomping at the bit. It's all about finishing strong, and that's something that Dan Mullen and his crew continues to be able to do, and it ends up being a 10-win season for the Gators as they won their last 3 games to finish the regular season. One of those reasons is the development of this young man. Patient, gave it opportunity to bide his time and get an opportunity to be the quarterback for the Florida Gators, and he responded. Ranking 3rd in all of those great statistics, including maybe the most important, that QBR sitting there at 81. So, all right, Dari, let those guys ask if they're the second best team.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 Gator alums sitting over here. And if you look at the playoff rankings, obviously LSU's the first SEC team, then Georgia is next. Then what? You got Auburn somewhere. That Florida's at 9 overall. The question is right now, is there a better team in this league that's not named LSU?
I think you look at what is the criteria with which you ask that question.
Right now. I want to right now.
Who would I want to play the least right now?
Yeah, so what we do in our post-game meetings every Saturday,
Yeah.
who's the second best team right now?
Chiz, I think it is Florida. I think you look at right now how banged up Georgia is, the lack of confidence that they showed after losing to LSU. I think Florida right now is happy with where they're going. They took a step forward. They won another game in the regular season. They have a chance to win 11 with this Orange Bowl matchup. But I really feel like right now Florida's healthy on defense, which they weren't when they played against Georgia. I think Auburn's probably right now, too, a team you wouldn't want to play, maybe ahead of Georgia at this point in time, too. So I don't think that there's anybody – I know you go back and look at the head-to-head matchup that occurred in the beginning of November between Georgia and Florida, but I think right now Florida's the team that's the most dangerous to face.
I think you could certainly make that argument. I look at a complete team, right? When you talk about, are they going to be the number 2 team in the league? Are they playing great on offense, great on defense? Maybe not great, but spurts of greatness and certainly solid. Look at the defense and what Todd Grantham has done there, right? They give up 14 points a game, okay? They have 46 sacks on the year. You get down in the red zone, you can't score on them. They're number 3 in the country on defense. Go to offense right now and look at what Kyle Trask has been able to do. There's weapons all over the field, starting with Kyle Pitts, a guy we didn't even know anything about at the beginning of the year, right? That's not to mention Van Jefferson. That's not to mention how Kyle Trask has played this year since he came in as the backup. 24 touchdowns. So you say, well, are they better than Auburn? What I can say is that you got quarterback play that right now is better than Auburn, and you got arguably defensively the best defense in the league, or at least neck and neck with Auburn.
Well, they're healthier than they've been.
And they're
right?
healthier.
Yeah.
So I think you could certainly make that argument.
That's the one thing you go back and look. Florida lost to now the number 1 team and the number 5 team. In both of those games, they weren't healthy with their edge rushers. Both Jabari Zuniga and Grenard were banged up. What do those two mean to that defense? They're the engines for that defense.
They mean everything.
And they're healthy now, and they showed that against Florida State in the final game of the season. 8 sacks against that Florida State offense.
By the way, of course, some Gator news. It happened the day before the SEC championship, where defensive back C.J. Henderson did determine that he will go into the NFL draft at season's end. Meanwhile, the opponent for Florida is Virginia, a surprise team, the 7th different team to win the ACC's Coastal Division in the last 7 years. Their reward was getting absolutely whipped by Clemson. Gave up 62 points in the ACC championship game in Charlotte. It was not pretty. Nobody expected it to be. But if you're going to find one guy to focus on when you look at the who's of Virginia, it would be quarterback Bryce Perkins. In fact, against Clemson, did throw a couple of touchdown passes, went for over 250 yards through the air. He's also a dangerous runner with the football. Frankly, on a team that's not filled with exciting players, he's one of the most exciting players in the ACC.
He is. I mean, he's the dual threat quarterback. When you define the word, you look him up in the dictionary, that's him. Yeah. I mean, Bryce Perkins is the guy that defines that. He's their leading passer, leading rusher as well. So I asked you this question. With all the speed and athleticism that Clemson defense had and locking them down to, 17 points in that ball game, I think that's going to be very similar to what Florida's defense will roll out there. I'm not so sure that with a one-dimensional offense, a one-man band like this offense for Virginia is, if you can beat a dynamic and athletic group as Florida's defense.
Yeah, well, let me say this. Let me start with Bronco Mendenhall, because I've played against his teams, and I will say this. They pride themselves on physicality and toughness. That's how he got them to the ACC championship game. As far as Bryce Perkins goes, he's number 1 in the league, and he's responsible for 3,600 total yards. He can run it, and he can throw it. Will they have a strain against this defense from Florida? 100%, but make no mistake about it. They want to beat an SEC team again.
Sure.
More than anything that they wanted to do this entire year. And let's not forget about what they did to South Carolina last year in the bowl game and beating them and shutting them out 28-0.
So Florida going to take on a team that's a bit of a surprise team, a team that surged, obviously, this season.